This is honestly, I think, one of my most favorite interviews that I have done so far on the Relationship Rehab podcast. Today, we are talking to Lauren and Luke Smallcomb. They are a married couple, they've been married for 18 years, and we are diving into things all about how to navigate a neurodivergent relationship. So, Lauren is neurotypical and Luke is neurodivergent. And this episode is so full of vulnerability, rawness, authenticness, as they both take us on a journey as to some of the struggles and challenges that come up with neurodivergent relationships. We're going to explain what that means, but it's ADHD and autism. Lauren has a better way of explaining it than me. But such a powerful episode that we all need to listen to and be aware of if we are dating or in relationship with people who are on the neurodivergent spectrum. But I just wanted to honor their vulnerability really in this relationship. It's such a pleasure to have been a part of it. And I know that you are going to thoroughly enjoy it. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Welcome to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. I'm Sammy, a certified breakup and relationship coach, attachment specialist, former love addict, and spiritual junkie. This podcast is for you, the hopeless romantic who loves to love, and a safe space for us to explore and heal our attachment trauma, broken hearts, and love addictions. Together, we are on a mission to become the love of our own lives, so we can have successful, healthy, secure relationships with others. So if you're ready to create a life and love beyond your wildest desires, you're in the right place. Your journey towards becoming more secure in love and life starts now. Hello and welcome back to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. And today I am so excited to share with you guys that we have not one but two guests on the show, Lauren and Luke Smallcomb. And they are also here living in Chiang Mai. And when they reached out, I was so excited to invite them onto the podcast because today we're going to talk about neurodivergent relationships. Now, this is a topic we have not covered here on the podcast because I am an absolute novice and these guys are experts. But let me introduce you to them. So Luke and Lauren are the founders of Flourish Therapy, a global trauma healing and brain retraining practice. Luke is a mental health practitioner and Lauren is a mind-body practitioner. The heart of their work is guiding folks who have experienced trauma out of dysregulation and chronic symptoms into joy, connection, and whole body abundance. Oh my God, I love that. They co-host the Build to Flourish podcast, where they love sharing their life and inviting others to greater emotional wholeness. Luke and Lauren live in Chiang Mai, Thailand, with their kids and their dogs. So without further ado, welcome onto the podcast, Lauren and Luke.
Thank you for having us. We're excited
to chat together, and then with another person. This is just going to be really fun to all kind of weave it all together.
Yes, I absolutely love these conversations. And like I said, this is a topic I'm super excited to get our claws into. But tell us a little bit about you guys, maybe on a professional level, like what you do here in Chiang Mai, what led you to Chiang Mai, and a little bit about yourselves as a couple as well.
professionally. We opened up our practice about 2.5 years ago. I have a master's in clinical counseling and have been practicing counseling for over 10 years and love it, and have been working in nonprofits and different organizations, had a small private practice in the States. Really love living life with people. And we've always kind of complemented each other professionally with her skills, just her journey towards helping people and as a nurse to becoming a mind-body practitioner. And we've always just dreamed of working together. And now that this opportunity came 2.5 years ago, we opened up this practice and just love it. Love working with each other.
Yeah, we've been married for a long time. We came from a very religious tradition that encouraged folks to get married young. And since we dated as teens, we were like, okay, I guess we get married. So we got married really young, and the stats on that are notoriously horrible. But somehow we beat the stats and are happier now than we've ever been. We've worked really hard at our relationship. And this topic has been so monumental. Understanding neurodivergence has been huge for the well-being and health of us personally and of our relationship. And we always say, if we had known this sooner. We were on a walk last night and we're like, can you imagine if we had gotten this information like 10 years sooner in our relationship, how much heartache and struggle it would have saved? So we're glad to share our story, and experts might be a very generous word. We are growing in that direction. I would say interpersonally, we are experts in it because we've had to figure it out without a lot of support and help. But then as we're working with clients, that is a growing expertise that we're developing because we're recognizing there are so many neurodivergent couples. Neurodivergency is so incredibly common, and it's often unseen because of the idea of masking. And many people can appear in behavior, thought, action, neurotypical because they've learned to adapt to the neurotypical world.
The intention today to speak to two types of people here. We're going to talk a little bit about how a neurodivergent individual can navigate the realms of dating and relationships and marriage. And we're also going to talk to the people that are dating and navigating a relationship with someone with neurodivergence. But first, let's break down this label. For someone who doesn't know what neurodivergence means, it's a label that we might hear from time to time, but we don't really have a grasp on it and understanding. Can you define what that means for us?
It's a newer term that's picked up in the social consciousness and public spaces. So it's actually incredibly valuable, but because it's newer, there's a lot of confusion around it. So essentially, neurodivergence is the idea that it's kind of a simplistic idea of there's two different types of brains, a neurotypical brain and a neurodivergent brain. Obviously, there's a way more nuance to that conversation than that, but neurodivergence, the field of neurodiversity tries to bring awareness to the idea that not every brain that we're in or being with thinks and processes like the typical, quote, model of the brain. And so knowing that there's these two kind of categories, and then it breaks down into many categories within that, is so helpful to learn how to support yourself, to support others, and to grow a thriving world, essentially. Without understanding neurodivergence, there is so much unnecessary harm and discrimination and misunderstanding happening to neurodivergent brains and people in a neurotypical world. And so the ones that you will hear most about, like the kind of core neurodivergent neurotypes, would be ADHD, autism, and ADHD is a combination of ADHD and autism. And so that's another really common thing you'll come across. So those are the ones that when we're talking, having this conversation, we're focusing mainly on those core. There's also other things like dyslexia, dyscalculia, which is a numbers thing. Could even be like OCD. Certain typical mental health disorders can also fall for some folks. For some categorizations, they'll say, oh, that's neurodivergent as well. It's not concretely defined yet. So you'll read different articles and you'll see that. But what is known is the difference between this idea that everyone has a neurotype, and we come into relationships with that neurotype. Think of it as like your hardware. And then we learn how to adapt, and the reality of socialization and all of the things, the conditioning on top of us, we learn how to live in a neurotypical world. This world is designed for neurotypical people, but the world is full of neurodivergent and neurotypical people. It's not only or even largely neurotypical. We have theories on that, but a lot of folks are neurodivergent. So,
and there's also like severities, like some people with neurodivergence, it affects them on a daily basis or relationally or socially, and other people, you may not know it because they're better at masking or your brain has adapted better. So there's like, I think this conversation is good because there is so much nuance, like Lauren was saying, of what it even looks like within people and how we bring it into a relationship. As Lauren was talking, I was thinking like attachment. Like we all come into a relationship with attachment. We all come into a relationship with our neurotype. And in order to be able to do relationship well, we have to know, it's helpful to know how are our attachments pushing up against each other. And it's the same thing as how is our neurotype pushing up against each other, challenging each other, or triggering each other uniquely within that specific relationship.
I love that comparison, Luke. Like, yes, because we talk a lot about attachment styles here, how we can meet each other's attachment styles and work with them. The same with the neurodivergent, neurotypical two brains, like Lauren said, and how you can work with each other with that as well. So just to clarify for our listeners, which one of you is neurotypical and neurodivergent?
I'm neurodivergent, and Lauren would be the neurotypical partner in our relationship.
I would love to know how does it show up for you, your neurodivergency? Like, what are some of the typical challenges or struggles that you have, especially in your relationship?
I didn't understand my neurodivergence, my neurotype until a lot later in life. So throughout my teenage years and 20s, I struggled and we struggled in relationship and we didn't know why. But as we had kids, we saw our kids struggling and started getting language and understanding what was going on with them. And I started reflecting and saying, oh, I struggle with that. And so like some of the things would be sensory overload. My kids are very sensory seeking. So they're need to make a lot of noise. Noise overwhelms me. So that really takes away my capacity. So I get tired very easily, which can come into our daily life of living with a neurotypical wife who is very goal-oriented, very motivated. I'm trying to keep up with her. And so there's a lot of shame that would come into that. Like, I can't keep up with her. So being able to remember things, it's very hard for me to keep things organized, to stay on task. So I had to learn a routine. So like having only a limited amount of meals so that I don't have to make a decision. I don't have to, like for breakfast, taking a shower at night, and then I get up, I eat breakfast, I brush my teeth, I put on deodorant, because if I don't do it in that routine, I'll show up in my office and be like, oh shoot, I forgot to put deodorant on, or I forgot to brush my teeth. And I have things in my office for times that I forget, hyperfixating on things. I was always struggled with, there's things I'm really good at, and then there's other things I'm trying to do within my work that I get distracted in, I really struggle with. I lose motivation. And so just finding those things that where my strengths are and leaning into them, and then finding things where my weaknesses are, finding ways to adapt. A big thing that has helped me is medicine. I take ADHD medicine, and that has really helped calm my brain down, help me focus, give me motivation. But along with that, I still pay the price. So like with capacity. So I may be able to go through a whole day's worth of work, but I'm exhausted by the end of the day. Relationally, its capacity was a big thing for us early on in our marriage. Lauren's very social, like I said, very active and motivated. At that time, I was going to grad school and working construction or landscaping. And I would come home and just being really tired physically, but also mentally working with different people. And Lauren would be like, hey, we're having friends over. I'm like, oh, great. I
And
would
then you'd
feel
be shut down, like we'd have people over and he'd almost have like a flat affect, like barely conversing. And they leave and I'm like, what the heck was that? Being so
yeah,
upset that he was being like, what appeared to be a jerk, but actually he was absolutely physiologically shut down. He had nothing
yeah,
left to give, but he didn't have the language to explain what he was experiencing. So then I would just be pissed off and he
right.
would feel like crap that I didn't, honor his capacity.
And I would feel shame because I couldn't show up the way that I felt like I needed to or she wanted me to. So I feel like I let down her, I hurt my friends, and so I just kind of felt like a failure. And so a lot of shame comes up with neurodivergence because like the world is set up for neurotypical and we just don't measure up in so many areas. Like right now, I'm trying to answer your question. And I'm like, have 15 directions I want to go into, and I'm like trying to organize them. That's really hard for me sometimes. Then you get in then that neurodivergent person get in your head and start questioning things and second guessing. And yeah, that goes into a whole nother area. So there's a lot happens in our brains that people don't always see.
Yeah.
And I didn't have language for a lot of it. So I there's just ways of I adapted, but because I didn't know there were adaptations or things I needed, I didn't prioritize them. So some of the things I was ashamed of. I wasn't working hard enough, or I was being lazy, and it's like, no, actually, I needed that to build my capacity to rest.
And
And it
can
just,
I add that when a neurodivergent person is not adequately supported and accommodated for, personally and in relationships and workspace, the comorbid, which means like alongside of diagnoses, are so much more common and such a concern. So things
yeah,
like anxiety, depression, suicidality, self-harm, addiction, these all skyrocket in a neurodivergent person when they are not, they don't even know. So that's like the number one thing. Awareness is massive in this field. But if you don't know and you therefore aren't accommodating for yourself, like Luke now knows, okay, I could probably do like one hangout on the weekend. Like maybe you and I can go on a walk, babe, and we can hang out with friends once, but the rest of the time, not seeing clients, not having sessions, I need to just chill. He knows how to do that now, and I know how to honor that now. But without that,
yeah,
people are continually trying to, like that whole saying of put a square peg in a round hole. They're trying to do that. And the constant masking, which masking is basically just appearing more neurotypical, is what it is essentially. And the constant action of doing that causes so much inner turmoil and conflict, and other conditions sprout up from that. So yes, you often see anxiety, depression, addiction, and other concerns within the neurodivergent population, but it's not even necessarily because that's more of a neurodivergent thing. It's because society has not yet made space for the world to be both neurodivergent and neurotypical. And so they've essentially, it's a byproduct of ableism. And there's a lot of things that could be totally prevented if they just could be accommodated for.
And on that note, I would love to talk to you as a neurotypical individual. What do you feel like people can do if they are dating or in relationship with someone who is neurodivergent? What are those things that they can put in place to be able to cultivate more understanding and support for their neurodivergent partner?
And this is kind of like you said, going back and kind of talking to your younger versions, like, I wish I knew, because in one sense, Luke and I are really compatible. We've become really compatible because we have very different strengths and weaknesses. So it's like, puzzle pieces, but it didn't always feel like that. And I look at how much I kind of crushed his spirit, really, how much I didn't understand him and thought, our childhood goes into our relationships, of course. I know you talk about that. Like how I came into our relationship was an overfunctioner, an overdoer, a tendency to be enmeshed. And these things were all from my family system. I was the one in the family system who had to help everyone and emotionally attune to everyone and make everything better. And so then I marry this amazing man that I'm like head over heels in love with, who loves me so well. But then when you get, you're living with someone, you see, oh, there's a lot here that I didn't know he struggled with. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to make it all better. I'm just going to take my little fairy wand and just go around the house and just make it all better. And basically what I was trying to do is make him neurotypical, but I didn't know that. And when you try to make a neurodivergent person neurotypical, you're in essence like trying to erase their essence, their identity, their framework you can't, it's like trying to say, take the bones out of a body. Like, no, the bones are the body. The bones make up the body. You can't change someone's neurotype, and trying to do so even unintentionally, it's just you probably can hear in my voice, there's guilt there, there's pain there. And we talk about it a lot and process it. And Luke's never made me feel that way. But now that I understand him so much, I get where I could have done such a different way as his partner. So I would say understanding is the greatest thing you can give your partner, regardless of our neurotypes, right? We all just want to be seen, known, authentically known, and understood. That's for everyone. And in a world where you're neurodivergent and you grow up feeling not seen, not authentically known, and not understood, you want that even more. I just got goosebumps saying that. Ooh, I think I might be an empath, which isn't a technical diagnosis, right? But I feel things a lot, which is kind of a more neurodivergent trait. They feel very, very deeply. But empath is one of those like, where do you fit? Anyways, I do believe I'm quite neurotypical, but my empath side, I kind of can relate to neurodivergent folks. So understanding is huge. If you believe your partner may be neurodivergent, or if they're telling you, listen, I think that I'm neurodivergent, do a deep dive with them, learn about it. There is a plethora of resources, and you can understand. It doesn't take a degree to understand this. And then offering that understanding, which of course requires so much communication, and that's a huge issue in relationships. And I just think we've really had to be like, what can you do? What can you like? That checking in regularly, but allowing Luke to use his voice and to become empowered, because I was in such an overfunctioning role, which this is a very common dynamic in neurotypical and neurodivergent couples, overfunctioning and underfunctioning. And it's has so much to do with their family roles and how they function in relationships. It's adaptive. It's just trying to find balance, right? The relationship's trying to find balance, but it can really perpetuate the problem. So because I would see Luke struggling, I would overcompensate and try to, do it for him, or XYZ, anything that you can think of when you hear of overfunctioning. I would overdo my role, which wouldn't give him space to step into his power more and become more assertive, embodied, and sure of what he even wants in life.
The neurodivergent person will underfunction because they've kind of been told or experienced, I'm not capable. Can't do this. So they default to other people. And so, like what Lauren was just saying, understanding and taking a step back has really helped me grow into more of who I am. And my neurodivergence isn't going to go away, but it doesn't drive me as much anymore because I've learned a rhythm, capacity, what I can do. I just want to say that, like, what you've done there is it can feel very hard to see a neurodivergent person struggling, because like there's a demand avoidance for neurodivergent people where it's not just you need to do this, it's what do I eat for breakfast? What do I wear today? And it's just every choice you make makes a neurodivergent nervous system feel like they're being attacked. So they're constantly feeling attacked, on edge, scared, threatened. And so when Lauren asked me to do something, my body would kind of shut down, or I would like attack her, or be like, why can't you do it? Why you always ask me something? Why are you overwhelming? And it was a really hard dynamic between us. But as we learned how to navigate that, her stepping back and saying, I know this is hard, or I need you to do this, or me doing the internal work of like, I feel dysregulated, I feel overwhelmed by this, but it's not fair for me to just ask her to do this. And so that's really helped grow my window of tolerance and grow my confidence of like, oh, I'm more capable a lot more than I realized. It was hard, but you really loved me well in that to help me grow my capacity as a dad, as a husband, as a man, but even professionally, feeling more capable in those areas of my life as you've helped back off and like encourage me and believed in me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. You both. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it sounds like the word that's coming to me that I keep coming back to is empowerment. It sounds like
Mm.
just being in a space of empowering the neurodivergent partner to understand, like you said, Luke, that you are more capable than you think. And with
Mhm.
understanding and love and support and encouragement and communication, you can get through these challenges together and be able to formulate a partnership and environment that really supports you both, really. Because
Yeah.
Laura, I want to touch upon your point of the fixer. We have a lot of us beautiful people that we love to fix, we love to take care, we love to overcompensate, overgive, overshare, over everything. And a lot of my clients are this way, and myself as well. You know, when you mentioned putting the square peg in the round hole, we all have this vision of what we believe a relationship or a partner should look like. And then we meet someone we fall in love with, and they may not be meeting that vision that we hold, and we try to mold them in a way to get them to fit that role. And we see this a lot in attachment styles. The hyperfixation becomes amplified, and the fixing. We're on more on the avoidance side, the shutdown. Like you mentioned the example of Luke retreating within himself and not really knowing how to be in that social capacity when you had friends over. That could be seen as quite avoidant behavior, right? Not in touch with their emotions and running away and shutting down. So I think this is just an invitation for us all to sometimes put the labels to rest and really just be with each other and what we're all experiencing, because we can jump sometimes. Oh, they're anxious. Oh, they're avoidant. Oh, they ADHD. Oh, they, and this can all be used to understand ourselves a lot more. But when does it get to the point where we start to fall a bit of reactionary to the labels rather than
Mm.
really using our own discernment?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And like labels can be tricky, and we also feel like they can be very useful when we're looking at the labels through the lens of characteristics. Not your ADHD, you fit this piece, like, and this is who you are, or your ASD, and you're supposed to look like this, and this is who you are. But really, like, what are you struggling with? What are the struggles, the characteristics? And they're so vast and affect so many different areas. It's really important to talk about those details of, doesn't matter if I'm ADHD, ASD, ADHD, like what are the dynamics in a relationship where we're struggling?
Right.
Where and how can we understand that? Another thing, RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, that's a huge thing where it could look like avoidant, like attachment, or it could be avoidant or anxious or a trauma. But when you can look at like when I'm sharing a criticism or feedback, it crushes me. Okay, so let's focus on that piece. Not is it ASD or whatever, but like let's look into that. So one example is like RSD, which is rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and that's not like a diagnosis, but that is more of a symptom of neurodivergence, where they interpret any appearance of rejection or any rejection or criticism as extreme. And this is something that we experience in our marriage. And rather than looking at it through the lens of like, is it an attachment or divergent, it can be more helpful of like, is this here? And what do we do with it? And so navigating the interaction, those dynamics, rather than giving it a label or putting you in a box.
I would also say the intention of using labels really matters. So if you're trying to write someone off with a label, or just like throw your hands up and kind of fail to see their humanity because of the label, like, oh, they're just so avoidant. That's when they can almost become weaponized, right? Because we're all just humans. All of us are on the same level playing field. So if your intention is to take every single behavior and like make it like pathologize it, that's not helpful and not your job unless you're in the field to diagnose people. But if it's something that a person has identified as, okay, this is so helpful in understanding me and my framework, and I want to share it with the people I'm in intimate relationships with so they can understand me and so I can be more empowered in that
Mm.
relationship. I just, that the intentionality piece is, I think, is really big behind that.
Thank you for saying that, 'cause that's what I think I'm just trying to get to. But on the other side, if you're using a diagnosis as an excuse within a relationship, like, oh,
Yes.
sorry, that's my ADHD. It's like, yes, that's true, but there's stuff we can do to help support ourselves so that we can help out more, or we do remember things. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but using it as an excuse, having that intentionality of using it as an excuse to not be accountable or responsible.
Yeah, I love what you both said, Lauren, with the weaponizing. I see this a lot, especially with the more anxious people. They avoid avoidance. They do not want to get into a relationship with avoidance. So if they're picking up signs that this person is avoidant, they'll shut it down and run away. And we're trying to really just encourage people to, okay, let's observe the behavior and let's get curious about it. I can give a personal example.
Yes.
When I was dating someone with an ADHD diagnosis, I didn't know this very early on. We were dating, and I noticed that sometimes he didn't respond to my messages, or he would take a while. He would message and he would miss out words, and it didn't make sense. Or he was a bit scattered, as I called it. He would jump here and then he'd jump there. Maybe didn't ask me enough questions. And I was kind of like listing all this up, and I went, oh my gosh, he's avoidant. He's avoidant. He's this, he's that, he's this. And I think that's when we can fall into, like you said, diagnosing people before really understanding people. And it was only when it came to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't think I can do this. I think you're on the avoidance spectrum, and that's what I'm looking for. And he then overpleased. I noticed he went into this space of shaming himself. And he's like, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person. I didn't want mean to hurt you. I'm so sorry. My brain. And then he said, look, I've got ADHD. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay. So I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, with awareness of you, like how you operate, and like you said as well, like, okay, yes, it is your ADHD, it is your autism, it is whatever it is. But if you have the tools and the resources and the strategies to support yourself, you can use the label to empower you rather than to excuse your behavior. I feel like what that means is to be like, oh, that's just my ADHD, and lying underneath it, really, and
Hmm.
allowing it to disempower you as opposed to empower you.
Yeah.
That be right in saying?
Yes. Absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. And again, that doesn't mean our brains aren't going to be scattered, but how do we be intentional to communicate that, or even have that open communication of like, hey, I tend to be scattered. Let me know if this is happening, or I forget to get back to you. Like that. There's a thing called, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but some kind of like time blindness kind of thing with ADHD, where you lose track of time, but also if the person's not in front of you, then you forget about them because you're thinking about so many other things. And so like that really is going to happen. So how do you be intentional? For example, like when Lauren goes away out with the girls for like a weekend or something, she'll say to me, can you please write to me while I'm gone? Because if she doesn't say that, I will forget and I'll be doing my own thing, and it'll be 12 hours go by and I haven't written to her, or she'll write me and like, oh, do a thumbs up or a heart, and like, but I'm not engaging. And so it's actually been something just recently. She's like, hey, when I go away, can you write me? And so now, like some people, I might have to put an alarm on. For me, it's like whenever I get up or when I transition from activities, I think, when's the last time I wrote Lauren? And so there's just like tools of, I know this is my struggle, so I have to take action to counteract that in order to love her. It's not going to be default or easy, but I still am responsible to meet her bid and to love her the way that she needs to be loved.
And I would say this is why, like, I want this to be an empowering conversation. I also want it to be realistic, because doing the work that Luke has done to be a really, really good partner with the different framework that nature gave him, he obviously didn't choose it to have everything be harder. It has taken so much work, so much intentionality, and so much willingness and humility. So I just want to be really honest for the folks who are listening who maybe fit a neurodivergent neurotype more. It's so hard. And also the neurotypical people need to hear this. These steps and this intentionality is not easy, and it's really humbling. So like, can you imagine if you're neurotypical always having to be like, oh yeah, you're probably right. Like, and with things like I mentioned something, Luke's like, I don't remember you ever saying that. And I was like, I know that I said that. He almost has to just default to my memory, which is a huge loss of power. And how we see it is shared power. We're sharing power, but it's a lot of like humbling yourself and realizing, because this is a neurotypical world, no masking. We're not saying you must mask 24/7 all the time and don't be your authentic self. Obviously, that's toxic and going to harm you. But there is a sense of you have to learn to adapt in this neurotypical world, and then have spaces where you can just completely unwind and not have those expectations on you. But relationships require so much intentionality, and certain neurotypes, it's really hard to manage and juggle all that. Your executive function is not robust, your memory is not great, and you're already feeling so overwhelmed by everything else. So managing a relationship is going to be a lot. If a person is not willing to be receptive, so say maybe they're like, yeah, I think I am neurodivergent, blah, 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 but they're not willing to really receive that feedback of how their behavior hurts you, or be willing to shift and adjust to honor and love you, even though it might feel contrary to their preferences, that's going to be a really hard relationship to sustain. And we just want people to know both sides, as if this was a side thing. It kind of is, but not. Have a choice. Like neurodivergent and neurotypical people, neither are better or worse, but you get to decide if that's the kind of relationship that works for you. And the neurodivergent person might say, I see how much support and accommodation I need, and how much flexibility from my partner that I need because I have such a rigid brain. But I see that my partner, my neurotypical partner, is super type A and is super driven and is not going to change their plans at all for me. That might not be a good match, right? And vice versa. Just because you can, like Sammy said, the overfunctioners and the overdoers and the I want to heal and fix everything and everyone, just because you're competent to do all of those things for the neurodivergent partner doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. Everyone has a choice here. And I just think that's so important, because there are a lot of people in long-term relationships that are very incompatible, and neurotype is a huge, huge part of it. So just because it can work, like Luke and I's story, totally works now. There's areas where we both would probably want it differently, but overall, we're incredibly satisfied and thankful and compatible. But it's taken so much work. I think it's always good to remember that you get to decide before you're in a committed relationship, you get to decide if that's what you want.
Yeah, I love
Get to
that.
decide afterwards too, but
You can decide after too. Yeah.
You can change your mind.
That's right.
Yes.
You can.
What you mentioned about intentionality and willingness, I always talk about this willingness, because
Mhm.
whether it's avoidant or ADHD, whatever, if someone is running low on capacity to meet your needs, are they willing, though? Like you said, are they willing to understand what makes you feel loved? Are they willing to be vulnerable about what they're experiencing? Are they willing to have those communications? And, just hearing what you said about this is not an easy feat. This is difficult. This is hard work. And it sounds like to me that you need to be in a good space in yourself to be able to navigate these challenges for you both, being able to see the other person, their actions, their feelings, whatever is happening, and not take it personally. I think a lot of us deal and struggle with taking things personally. And I feel like if we're in relationship with someone who's either trying to fix us or shutting down, how can we not take that personally, right? And just navigating those challenges. So I want to steer us into a direction, both, because we talked a lot about the challenges and the struggles and what it takes to be in a neurodivergent relationship. I want to focus on what does work, because you guys have been married for 18 years. You've been through the trenches together. But what is it about your marriage that works when it comes to being able to support each other in your neurotypical, neurodivergent experiences?
Yeah.
I think that teachability and humility for on both ends has been really helpful because Lauren's had to learn about me and adapt, and I've had to do the same. So I think that's really huge. Communication, like we talk a lot about the struggles and hurts, and that's been something that's been very hard for me. I'm more avoidant, and so I really struggle with conflict. Rejection sensitivity dysphoria is very strong in me, along with that avoidance. So connections is really scary for me. But I also know that if I pull away, that triggers her anxious attachment. And so I have to be intentional. I can use that information to hurt her, or I can use that information to love her. And that intentionality of communication, learning, and then implementing those things and figuring out and identifying what's working, what's not working, because different seasons are going to bring up different things and different needs. I think both of us learning more about neurodivergence has given us language of how to have conversations. Like in the past, I would want to, like the evenings, I felt like I wanted to spend more time alone, or at least have a couple nights a week spend alone. But I felt like if I asked for that, then she would feel like I didn't love her. And so I just pushed through. But then as we're able to have those conversations, understand like, no, it's not that I don't love you, it's my capacity is low. And so she doesn't, like you said, doesn't take that personally, but I also have to be intentional to connect in other ways.
It's making me think about the idea of acceptance. So in our work, we have 5 pillars of healing, and I'll just say them because I love them so much. Acceptance, beauty, compassion, slowing down, and embodiment. And just how these are kind of the pillars of getting a regulated system and healing and moving forward and creating the life we want, essentially. But acceptance is so huge. And like you said, Sammy, that we have this idea in our mind and it's so idealistic. Like, who lives in a movie? Only actors and actresses, and it's fake for them. So none of us are experiencing that kind of relationship. We married human beings or dating humans. So my big place of growth has been seeing and accepting the people around me. I came from a more of like a narcissistic family system that was very emotions don't matter, heart doesn't matter, do, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be effective, efficient, competent, and great. And that shaped me. But I was this little empathetic little girl in that system. So I had this warring of like conflict within me. And then I married this very empathetic, not a man that's not like that. He's actually very gray. He sees in gray. He understands why people do what they do, which makes him an incredible counselor. He is so highly attuned and compassionate. And I was just very rigid and black and white. I have had to learn as a neurotypical person, like if you hear this and you think, oh, it's just the neurodivergent folks that need to change and evolve. No, it's not true. I have had to lean into seeing people for who they are, for better or worse. That might mean some people I can't be in a relationship with anymore because I'm living in reality and I'm accepting what I see, but also accepting people's strengths and weaknesses. And that's my children and my partner, and actually allowing them, like inviting them and not trying, not fixing them. Like to be able to allow, obviously we're not talking about abuse behaviors here. That's not what we're talking about. But if there are things that your partner does that are because of their neurotype, it's like the tolerance and acceptance of that is such a way to love them while also getting your needs met. It's a both and situation. Your needs matter, their needs matter. And I'm just thinking about like how much work that I've done on myself to lean in and soften my grip and take what life brings with a soft, gracious receiving and an acceptance. And that looks like a million different things. But my idealism could have ruined our relationship and made him feel like crap because I had these, big ideas of what everything should look like. And that's just not real life. So little things like, I've accepted he doesn't love to go out with big crowds. That's not fun for him. So we'll do it once in a while, and he's noticeably anxious and not having a great time. But then I'm like, why don't I just go with my friends when I want to do that? Why don't I just do that with friends? And then I can go to the romantic, dark restaurant settings with him and enjoy that time. I don't need him to fulfill every need that I have. And little things that come up, like one recently, when we're watching TV, if we're like in a series, we're watching it, he has found that playing a mindless game on his phone actually helps him follow the show. It helps him concentrate and stay engaged in the show. And like a few months ago, I was like, I've asked him many times if he didn't, could you just not double screen right now? And when I ask him, he stops, but then he kept going back to doing that. So I was just like, okay, tell me the truth. Is this not something that you really feel like, do you feel like this is actually helpful to you? You're not just doing it for whatever, you actually feel like you kind of need it. And he was like, yeah, I kind of feel like I do. And I was like, okay, I made a conscious choice to just accept that. If I want to cuddle, he'll put his phone down and we'll cuddle. Otherwise, he wants to play and you can watch, you
I
can
actually
enjoy the show.
I track the show better than you guys usually.
Yeah, you do.
But it's also because I'm also a highly sensitive person. So it's like that empathetic on steroids. I feel everything. And so it's also, depending on what show it is, the show can be very dysregulating to me. And so this gives me a little bit of a distance to help me stay present, but not be overwhelmed by it. Yes, but you've adapted. And as you were saying, that one thing that came up is like doing your own work is really important. Something that we've done is we've done work together, but we've also been responsible to do our own work with the acceptance of this is my brain, this is my body. I have to accept that, and now I have to do the work because it doesn't just come like, oh, I'm neurodivergent and that's it. It's like I also have trauma. I also have life
Avoidant
happens and
attachment.
avoidant attachment, and so like I have to do my work. And as Lauren was saying, she's had to do her work, and how she has learned to love me has been like so amazing and healing to me of someone that doesn't that has kind of felt like he's not deserving, not lovable, not good. And so as she's just like learned that these things aren't bad, they're just who you are and I can accept them rather than and like when we're in a big crowd, it does cause anxiety and we can't always avoid them. So she'll hold my hand or she'll check in with me. I was like, how you doing? I'm anxious. Okay, let's find the exit. Or like when we're downtown Chiang Mai at night and there's traffic and noises and everything, and I can't focus and think straight. She kind of takes the lead and like, okay, I got you. Just follow me, because my nervous system is so overwhelmed by everything that's going on, and that's been felt so loving that I don't have to mask that moment. I don't have to pretend like I'm strong, like I have it all together. I can step aside, and let her love me, and it's been really. It hasn't been easy, but like
Yeah.
after 20 some years of being together, I think we're getting it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And what I'm hearing is from what you were saying, Lauren, it's all about curiosity of their experiences, with the playing of the game and watching
Yes.
TV. It's so easy in that moment to command that they stop or shame them in some way, but instead it's be like, okay, what's going on here? Is this helpful for
Yeah.
you? And just getting curious about their experiences without creating a story or a narrative based off of our own past experiences and what we believe is happening. but instead asking those open-minded, curious questions. And what I'm hearing from you, Luke, is having that partner, because this was actually my next question, and you completely answered it, was what does Lauren do to support you as a neurodivergent individual? And what I'm hearing, and feel free to expand on this, but she is your partner in all ways of the term. Like you are a team, and she is attuned to you. She notices the subtle signs where you may be feeling a little anxious or going into shutdown because you have done the work both on each other and together. And she is able to ask those questions to explore, be curious, and put a strategy in place when you are not able to navigate. So just having that element of teamwork is what I'm hearing is so important for you.
Yeah, and it's really risky for her because she knows my capacity can be low. So she can like, hey, I'm gonna go pick up the kids today. Or doing a lot of the running around. And so she does that to help support me because she knows that takes a lot out of me, even if it's running to the store or dropping somebody off. She does all those things. But it's also for those people that are listening that are neurodivergent, like I have to say yes. I do have to say yes. So like when she does ask me like, hey, I've been driving the kids all over the place. Can you go do this? Like, yeah. Like in the past, there'd be a part of me who was like, oh, she's taking advantage of me, or she doesn't understand me. And I've had to work with that part and do my work. I was like, no, she's never going to try to take advantage of me. And I don't want to take advantage of her. And so she's asking me, I need to reciprocate or even volunteering.
Yeah, it's finding what works for each couple. And just to hallmark the nuance once again, this is why it's so tricky, because Luke actually has a tendency to bypass his needs and just do stuff, but feel bitter and unseen and uncared for because he won't speak up. And I have a tendency to overdo and overfunction. So either one of us, there's no equation, right? Like sometimes him saying yes could actually be not using his voice, that he just had several sessions. He's exhausted. He can't even keep his eyes open and he can't go drive, but he doesn't say it, right? So that's not the best. Or me not asking him because I'm just like, oh, I'll just do it, whatever, me in my overfunctioning role. And then that's not good. So it requires so much constant attunement, self-attunement, and then attunement to your partner and honesty. And one of the paths of growth that Luke's been on, which is really important for neurodivergent folks, is being honest and speaking up and using their voice. And again, Luke will say this, that doesn't always mean your voice gets what it wants. So sometimes it's like, I really don't know if I can do this. And then I respond, I actually can't do it. So you have to.
Yeah.
And he works with himself and he finds a way forward. But him saying, like him speaking up and using his voice then signals to my overfunctioning parts, oh, you don't have to hyper attune. You can just normal attune. And that's really, really healing for an overfunctioner to realize, oh, the other partner is taking ownership and autonomy for their needs and they will voice them. And I can trust that what they say they mean. I don't have to read around it and, do all the things that us anxious attachment folks do. And that's so freeing. So I hope it's clear, like the interweaving of both of our own growth paths is how you make this work. And I hope it's also clear that if only one of the partners is willing, receptive, and intentional in that work, it's not going to work. I hope that that's also clear.
I love that you said that. It does come back to doing your own work as well, taking accountability for yourself and coming into that space on your own individual path, but also walking on your partnership path as well together. And I just have one more question for you both, and then we'll wrap up this incredible episode. There is so much other questions I want to ask and so many different directions I want to go, but I'm going to just ask one final question to you both, just to summarize this episode. And Lauren, I'm going to start with you because it's a bit of a dual-ended question, really. And I hope that it intertwines in a way, because when you were speaking about your experience with Luke being neurodivergent, I was thinking a lot with who I used to be, my past self, and who a lot of my clients are struggling with as well, is the overcompensation, the self-sacrifice, the self-abandonment. I'm curious, what has your experience been, or what do you feel like these people need to hear when it comes to like what is the balance between tipping into that space of self-sacrificing and abandoning our own needs and, well, I guess not doing that, because I know a lot of us struggle with really understanding what that looks like, first of all, but acting on it as well. I know personally I've gone years self-sacrificing and self-abandoning without even noticing, and that's the work that the individual needs to go on. But I'm curious if you have anything to say to that of anybody who's thinking, yeah, but I get it, but when does it cross the line?
My God. I think especially as females, this is such an important question that we need to be asking as a society, because historically that is what we've done. We are survivors and we have made it to the 21st century and made so much progress as women and are more liberated than before, but we just have a tendency to erase ourselves to maintain love and belonging. And that is such a primal need. So it's like, I honor that in you, I honor that in me. It's such a real need. But I think the journey looks like really, really clarifying what it is you want. And if what you have is matching that, it's like really becoming so clear with yourself and getting rid of the denial and the chosen blindness, and all of the things that keep us in unhealthy relationships. It's like becoming so assured that you are worth what you want. And what I want is a mutual relationship of reciprocity. And I am not an easy person to be partnered with. I have very high expectations for my partner. And he keeps rising to the challenge of meeting them. And I know a lot of partners won't do that. But really knowing yourself, that's why I love that you highlighted on what we were saying of like really doing your own inner work and knowing your story and knowing your, like getting so in touch with your inner compass and what it is that you want your life to look like. And then just using that as your guide. I mean, ultimately, you are your guide.
How can we speak to those people that are in relationship with someone who is neurodivergent and wants to maybe give a little bit more and compensate a little bit more, but when do we need to have that pull back and be like, okay, am I in a state of self-sacrifice?
I would say the direction that my heart is wanting to go is like, there are two different kinds of scenarios that could be, and one could be where there's actually like abuse dynamics. So this is like emotional abuse, manipulation, coercion, blame shifting, gaslighting. When those are patterns, not just I'm super dysregulated, this was a one-off incident that I manipulated you like this, but it hasn't happened again in months or years, that's not an abuse dynamic. That's just some people, we do shitty things when we're really in a bad space. But if there's a pattern, that would be like the one route of if you're with someone who's not in a healthy space to grow, then you giving more is only going to fuel the unhealthy dynamics in the long run. It might create a couple weeks or months of honeymoon-ish because they're so happy, but it's really just going to fuel their dysfunction. So I would say really become clear with yourself if those dynamics are there and that relationship's not for you. You deserve so much better. That's going to only lead to more heartbreak. The other route would be, this is not a relationship with abuse dynamics. It's just a difficult dynamic. It's just a difficult relationship. I'm neurotypical. I think my partner's neurodivergent, and we're really like not meeting. We're not seeing eye to eye. We're clashing. In that scenario, if they're willing to have that reciprocity, that's so huge. And any relationship can have reciprocity, even if it's neurodivergent and neurotypical. It totally can have it. We have loads of reciprocity in ours. I would say if that's there, then absolutely go for it. try to understand, try to accommodate and meet them in their needs. And then, see, okay, I'm fine with you having a few nights where we don't hang out, but can we do this? Like every Friday night, can we have a special blah, 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 blah. Put your own needs out there and see if they are reciprocated, or give a few options to your neurodivergent partner. Like, what feels more doable for you? Like, what feels life-giving and less overwhelming? And then, just because they can't meet this one very specific need doesn't mean they're not willing to try to meet other ones. So I would say 1,000%. If I didn't go for this, I would have missed out on one of the best men in the world, a most compassionate, kind-hearted. He keeps me so grounded, and he has been a rock through really tremendous grief in the last several years that I've walked through. And he's helped me build a secure attachment, which, relationships are all about. That is us learning, is, doing that. I would have missed out on that if I stayed in that ideal. That ideal ruined so much for so many of us. And for the folks that are in that scenario, you could have something so incredible on the other side of this struggle. Not that it's going to take like a week or two to figure out, but the other side, meaning, farther down the road, it could be amazing. Like our relationship, we have like a beautiful rhythm, and we've just created a life that feels really fulfilling to both of us. We're both happy, not just him, not just me. And I think that that's possible if both partners are willing.
Mhm.
Wow, that brought me to goosebumps. That was beautiful, Lauren. Thank you for sharing that with us. Touch upon the second half of that question, really, which is what you want people to know about dating someone with a neurodivergency. And yeah, is there anything you want to add to, if you were to speak to your younger self? Or
so how I want to answer that is, Luke, can you state your answer of, remember one of the questions, like of how it feels to be you, or can you just read that real quick?
What do you wish neurotypical people understood about being in a relationship with a neurodivergent partner? That one?
Yeah.
We're trying. We do care. We're not lazy. Life is really that hard. I already have a lot of shame. I don't need more.
Because I know my partner and I know he's not trying to use that as an excuse or to be abusive, like those words break my heart, because I know he lived in that space for so long without, no one hearing that voice, kind of like a box, a soundproof box where that can't get out. Like people can't know. I am trying so hard. Like my life really is this hard. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not trying to get out of things. Like life just feels different for me. It's more, everything is more. Tasks, feelings, relationships, information to process, all of it requires more. And I am trying. And I think for me, I believe that 1,000% now. And I know that that represents so many neurodivergent folks who just wish that they had a partner, family, friends who really could see and support them wholeheartedly. And in doing that, it reduces their shame dramatically. Like the person I'm with now and the person I was with 5-10 years ago, he's so different because he's so much more healed. His shame is like so much lower, and he's able to give and receive love, and he's able to let me tease him and like tease some of his neurodivergent symptoms, and he just teases himself back, and it's playful and lighthearted, and he trusts me and I trust him. And I just think really getting to know your partner like on a heart intimate level, and that might take time for them to be really honest. They might just be like, I'm fine, it's not hard or whatever. But when they really open up that most vulnerable, like sacred place deep within that has been protected for years and not let anyone into, you have hit gold, like you've struck gold. And go into that space and really allow yourself to take it all in and understand them in a way that you haven't before, and then move forward with that. And I just move forward with it now. Like I know who he is. I know him deeply, and that just changes everything of how I can engage relationally with him. So get more intimate with your person and get to know them. And I just think that will help you in a way that nothing else will, because you care about this person, obviously. So we are naturally inclined when we see truth and suffering and story within each other, our natural qualities of love and compassion and kindness and empathy come. So make space for that to happen.
That's so beautiful, Lauren. Beautiful way to end this episode. But Luke, I do have one more question for you that I do believe is quite important to ask, and then we will bring it to a close, because I want you, Luke, as a neurodivergent individual, to speak to anyone who also has a neurodivergency. And whether you speak to your younger self or just people that you know, what do you want them to know when it comes to navigating the dating scene or a relationship or a marriage? What do you feel like they need to hear from you now that you have walked the path and you're 20 plus years in?
I would say you're capable more than you realize. You deserve to be known. Learn about yourself. Invite your partner into those conversations as you feel safe. And if there is reciprocity, then continue to invite them.
Yeah.
If there's resistance or not reciprocity, okay, just take note of that. Have patience and compassion for themselves. Compassionate curiosity. When we're in a neurotypical world as a neurodivergent, there's so much shame and we feel broken. And so I would invite that patience and curiosity and compassion of this world is not designed for you to succeed. And that's why you feel like you're broken. But that doesn't mean you can't succeed. You just have to find your way. And you can do that by getting to know yourself better, loving yourself more, accepting who you are. And if you can invite other people in to know you and have that community, whether it's just with a partner or friends, where you don't have to mask, like find those people where you don't have to mask. Those parts of you deserve to be known. Like those are not things to be ashamed of, like need to be ashamed of or hidden in a closet. Like as I've let Lauren see my idiosyncrasies, my just things that like I've held a lot of shame for, a lot of shame of, and to see her understand them or even make space for them or even accommodate for them, it's a beautiful thing to be able to be loved that way in areas where you haven't experienced it. But I'm learning also that those needs are okay to verbalize. Like it's okay that I have sensory needs, that I have a sensory overload, that it's okay that I need a break. It's okay that doesn't mean I don't love her if I need no interaction for a little bit. And so just like learning to have your voice and advocate for yourself in a way where it helps you be more authentic, be able to learn how to love your partner more, and then also to be able to be loved better. And don't be afraid to do your work. A lot of us we find out later on, like try to adapt into a neurotypical world. And it's going to take time to work with that shame, work with that trauma that you've experienced, rewire the beliefs that you have about yourself, rewire the belief that you don't deserve a relationship, or you can't have a relationship, or you're broken. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to know everything. Like, find supports, encourage a therapist, but there's so much social media out there of people like walking through the same journey and are ahead of us and are able to let us know where that next step is. And so like don't feel like you have to do it alone. Again, so many times we feel so much shame that we feel like we have to navigate this by ourselves because we feel so unique and like no one else can understand what it's like to be me. And it's actually surprisingly you're not alone. You are a unique person, but your experience isn't innately unique.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us, Luke. And that's a beautiful way to end this incredibly powerful episode. I want to thank you both once again for being so open and vulnerable with your experiences, for taking the time to share them with us, along with all the tools and tips and strategies as well, to help us all understand each other more as human beings and work with each other in all our uniqueness and our strengths and our weaknesses and our challenges. So thank you both so much for being on the podcast. And if people, listeners, wanted to get in touch with you, wanted to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Instagram and Facebook at flourish_therapy. And we have a podcast, Filled to Flourish. We're doing a neurodivergent podcast series in a couple months, so if you want to check that out. Also, we are going to roll out a couples like support group for neurodivergent couples. That'll be in the new year. So yeah, follow our website is flourishtherapy.co. Luke also offers trauma healing work for couples or individuals, and I do mind body coaching. So we've got lots of offerings. We'd love you to connect if you're interested.
Absolutely go and check them out, guys. For anything with trauma healing, neurodivergency, and everything in between, their content is amazing. So I really vouch for that. Thank you both once again so much. And thank you, our listeners, for being here with us in this space. I hope that this episode has been so helpful for you. And if you do need any further support, like Lauren said, go check out their content, their podcast for even more content on this topic of neurodivergency. Thank you so much for joining me on the Relationship Rehab podcast. I hope that this episode has supported you in healing, growing, and evolving out of insecure attachment and unhealthy relationship patterns and into safe, authentic love with yourself and others. If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would just take a second to rate and review this podcast. Every rating and review from you guys counts, as it really helps this podcast to grow so it can reach more people who need to hear this content. And don't forget to connect with me on social media. Take a screenshot of this podcast episode, share it on your IG stories, and tag me at the.relationship.rehab with your biggest takeaway from the episode. I really do love reading them. See you back here next week for another episode on the Relationship Rehab podcast.